Knowing your audience is half the challenge that goes into making a successful anything, really. Obviously, the larger the audience, the harder it is to find one solid opinion to base it on, but you've got to appeal to an established demographic. Otherwise, you're just making things unnecessarily difficult.
I think at this stage it's been well documented how difficult it can be to make a good sequel. Not just in video games either. It happens with films, books, seasons of a TV show. Living up to the set standard isn't automatic. Some may argue that the act of making a sequel isn't a great idea in the first place when you don't need one, but clearly you've never worshipped at the church of the almighty sack of cash. Tends to make decisions for you. Making an unnecessary sequel that fails to ignite any kind of excited response from fans is a move that, in hindsight, few people would take. It doesn't mean that the sequel itself is a bad game, it means that before it came out and people got to grips with it, it didn't grab much attention. It becomes doubly galling when there's so many other franchises that do need sequels. I really want a new Mother game. Could you work on that instead? I'll take a proper Conker's Bad Fur Day sequel if you can't do that. I'm open to compromises. The real problem with squeezing a sequel from a source that doesn't really deserve it is that you're expecting the kind of instantly positive reaction from fans that isn't likely to come about. You know, you gotta be excited for a sequel, and that isn't easy if the original game was a disc of hardened porridge oats. And not the maple syrup flavor, that shit's delicious. Really, this video is just another opportunity for me to beat the drum of the first Watch Dogs game being a deceptively average crock of shit, but luckily for you, that's not what I want to focus on. Ubisoft had planned from the start to turn Watch Dogs into a successful new IP that they'd milk into the ground, and despite the lack of quality, the first attempt made them a lot of money, so Watch Dogs 2 was always inevitable. But who would actually care?
It's a dangerous game altering a game so that it looks nothing like what earlier trailers revealed, but it's a different ballpark entirely giving that game a sequel knowing that you've pissed off a large section of fans. How can you have any faith that Watch Dogs 2 will look like the trailers showed after the debacle that was the first Watch Dogs game? It keeps expectations low, I guess.
Usually you have a sequel born out of a desire to see more of the same, rather than what happened with Watch Dogs 2, which was more like, hey, do it properly this time. Because, you know, this kind of game could be halfway decent if you put more polish into it and lifted the tone and fixed some of the more glaring bugs and set it in a less depressing city and really just tear everything down and start again. So props to Ubisoft for doing that, since Watch Dogs 2 is way more fun to play, but given their recent track record, you can understand the skepticism behind Ubisoft's ability to look at one of their own games critically and fix the problems. By all accounts, Watch Dogs 2 should be the Assassin's Creed Syndicate to Watch Dogs 1's Unity. Better, but not much better, and certainly not enough to invite excitement. But hey, it's alright. These scissor lifts are pretty fun, and if Ubisoft want to make a third game, I'm actually kind of interested now. Might have a decent launch week now that they've got a good product to sell. A part of me will miss the bugs. Grabbing attention as a game that comes from a genre that is hilariously oversaturated requires both a few eye-catching hooks and a talented marketing team, especially if the game in question isn't unique or interesting in any way. However, it says more than I could ever say when the announcement trailer is way more memorable and held in higher regard than the game itself, but this is the exact case with 2011's Dead Island. You all know the trailer I'm talking about. Half of it is shot in reverse slow-mo, the other half at normal full speed to create contrast. And even though this level of artistry is clearly writing a check that Dead Island would never be able to cash from now until the heat death of the universe, the release of the game showed the extent of the damage, and it's another generic zombie game with none of the emotion of this trailer. So yeah, lost cause. Bit of a shame, but let's move on to something else. Oh, wait, you want to make a sequel? That sounds like a bad idea. Dead Island 2 isn't out yet. Could well be the game of the year when it does come out, but I'm not sure what year that'd be because there's been a bunch of developmental changes and it hasn't got a release date yet. More importantly, there's nothing to suggest that anyone involved with Dead Island 2 have learned their lesson about not making an easily forgettable zombie action game. Even moving away from the fact that the whole genre has walked every possible path, you can get your fix of arcade-style zombie fun from games like Dead Rising, so I struggle to see the point of this game. Even better, reading up on the game has told me that Dead Island 2 takes place in California, whereas the first centered on a fictional island off the coast of Papua New Guinea. California isn't a fucking island! You want me to give you money in exchange for a game that thinks that California is a separate landmass to the rest of the US? What are you, fucking 16th century Spaniards?
If you did enjoy the first Dead Island game and are one of the 4 people who are excited for the sequel, then maybe your optimism will take a bit of a hit when you hear that there's been numerous delays, story changes and gameplay redesigns. Though maybe all of this will mean that there's fresh perspective when approaching the second game, but that does imply that fresh perspective in a 2017-18 zombie game? You're more likely to find Mario in Call of Duty.
Making a hit title as an indie developer is like striking oil in a desert. It makes you pretty popular and you'll do anything to repeat the process. Then again, I don't think any wars have been started because of an Undertale sequel, but we've still got time. Making a sequel to a successful indie game is a very down-to-earth process, since you can easily take on board feedback from fans and try to make something that doesn't feel like just a simple continuation of the first game. So of course, with the kind of popularity that the first Five Nights at Freddy's game enjoyed, you'd think that there would be enough factors at play here for some pretty good sequels, but no, not really. I'm half tempted to include every FNAF game after the second one on here, since they've started to tread the same path with only the expanded lore serving as any incentive to play them, but I think it's important to recognise when to let things die. Scott Cawthon, the creator of the franchise, has had his career as an indie developer launch into the stratosphere, and has accrued plenty of praise and obviously money from making these games. My argument would be that now he's in this advantageous position, it's a great chance to explore pastures new and to really branch out a bit. Simply, make something else. The first FNAF game is the best, the second isn't too bad, but after that it's a clumsy stumble down the hill of tired ideas and gimmicks. I've put what's technically the 5th game in the franchise, Sister Location, on here because it was the first Five Nights at Freddy's game that I legitimately couldn't care less about. Bit of a shame because I've heard it's good, but I'm so burned out with animatronic jump scares. Everything just feels too comfortable these days, and you don't want to feel comfortable playing a horror game. Write a few books, Scott. Get that lore away from these templates.
It's easy to forget this now we're in 2017, but there was a time when Rareware were at the peak of their powers, to such an extent that one of their most entertaining games is a parody of their own style. You think of pre-Microsoft Rare, and you think quality, that everything they touch turns to gold, or dinosaurs.
In the eyes of many, Starfox hasn't got any better since Star Fox 64 in 1997, which is a testament to both the qualities of an N64 game that has aged quite well all things considered, and the unfortunate inability to surpass it in the best part of 2 decades. It's taken a lot of side steps without any major steps forward, but hang on, didn't Rare have a hand in making one of these games? That's a great combination, it's like Platinum Games making a Star Fox game. Oh. Should clarify before we go any deeper that I really like Starfox Adventures. I played it when I was a kid and it might have just been the Zelda influence, but I had a lot of fun. However, it's pretty hard to look past the drastic change that came about from plastering Starfox characters onto Rare's existing game Dinosaur Planet, and you find yourself reminding yourself every 5 minutes that it's a Starfox game. Not when you're in the R-Wing though, they're smooth sections with plenty of barrel rolling, but they make up maybe 5-10% of the total playtime. You can see why a lot of people didn't want it and why some refuse to accept that Starfox Adventures is part of the franchise, but again, I've got to underline all of this with the observation that there's some fun to be had here. It's the problem when you make such massive changes to a well-established franchise and expect everyone to be completely on board immediately. Is it just not gonna work? Would the Starfox franchise look different if Adventures didn't exist? Probably, but it's hardly a lost cause. Just don't give it a stupid control scheme next time and we'll be fine. Give your fans an inch and they'll take it all with no mercy. Not you guys though, you guys are alright. I'm sure if I released a trailer saying that these countdown style videos have been traded out for makeup tutorials, it'll go down like a sack of bricks, but when you bring in change, you should probably bring it in gradually so you can read reactions towards something minor and adjust accordingly. Call of Duty Ghosts, which is one of the worst games in the franchise in recent memory, had a level where you floated around in space and shot bad guys, which is as ridiculous and comical as it sounds. Someone at Activision thought that Call of Duty had room to get more ridiculous. I take it that it won't have escaped your attention that Call of Duty Infinite Warfare wasn't as well received by fans as anyone involved with it would have hoped for. These days we've got a great barometer for fan dissatisfaction, and heading over to the reveal trailer where Activision showed the world what the new Call of Duty game would look like shows close to 3.5 million dislikes, making it the second most disliked video on all of YouTube. You see, you build up this massive fan base but anger them at your peril. A large part of the frustration towards this trailer comes from the abrupt departure from Call of Duty's roots, which have nothing to do with space or futuristic technology, and instead this new style of Call of Duty feels like an attempt to ride the coattails of other franchises like Halo or Titanfall. Activision have gradually moved towards this different approach for Call of Duty with recent installments, but it was Infinite Warfare that became the straw that broke the camel's back in quite a spectacular way. Not to mention that you can only buy the remastered version of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare alongside Infinite Warfare, which makes sense business-wise, but bundling a reminder of how great war in the not-too-distant future is alongside the symbol for everything wrong with futuristic warfare is frankly too poetic for words. Call of Duty has always garnered hate for its ability to churn out games frequently and to ridiculous financial success, but Infinite Warfare is the first time where the hate has come en masse from within their own fanbase. Between Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3 and now Infinite Warfare, it seems like the prospects of a realistic, down-to-earth, modern Call of Duty game are desperate. New things are good, but don't expect everyone to agree with you. Change is scary.
This is RabbidLuigi, and the power of Call of Duty as a way of making money has always been a good platform to experiment and to piss off a few people, but Infinite Warfare didn't sell anywhere near as well as higher-ups would have liked, even with the incentive of a remastered Modern Warfare. It just goes to show what ignoring your fanbase can do to a product. Maybe now Activision will realise how fragile their success is. Maybe we will one day get a modern-day shooter again. It'd be nice.
Have you got an idea that you'd like me to turn into a countdown? Let me know in a comment down below, and make sure you check out my Twitter where I'll be turning the best submissions into a poll where you can then decide the best topic. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that. I'm gonna need most, if not all of you, to fill my banks with top 5 topics since I was starting to run out by the end of 2016, but I've learned to like one-off videos about whatever discussion point I can come up with. Came about from Pokemonth and filling the middle of the week with something interesting, and hey, I spent Friday getting to grips with a Nintendo Switch, so maybe I could do that. Not every week, I won't have enough ideas for that, but, you know, I've got a few. I can be interesting if you give me interesting things to say.